Westmoreland Community Connections is a presentation of Citizens Fiber.
Welcome to Westmoreland Community Connections, a look at issues and happenings on Classic Hits 107.1 WHJB. Here now is your host, Jennifer Mealy, Chief Communications Officer and Managing Director of Evangelization of the Diocese of Greensburg.
Hello and welcome to Westmoreland Community Connections. I'm your host, Jennifer Mealy. I'm the Chief Communications Officer and Managing Director of Evangelization for the Diocese of Greensburg, and I'm so happy to welcome one of my dearest, not oldest friends, notice I say that, Jennifer Miller. She's the Chief Executive Officer of the Westmoreland County Food Bank. Jen, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us here. We're past the holidays now. There's been a lot of work and effort put into feeding people over the holidays, and what a challenging time for you. How is the food bank holding up?
Well, thankfully, we are doing well. The community is overly supportive right now. We are so blessed, but we are concerned about what the future brings as everybody else is. We had to shift gears so much in 2020. And now looking into the new year, it makes it even more difficult to plan because you just don't know what the future is going to bring. So, we had to switch gears. We had to change the way we were doing things from sending food out in bulk to pre-packing everything. It's just been quite the challenge.
Jen, I can't imagine what you've been through. So let's back up now to March of 2020. There is a stay-at-home order. And COVID-19 is sweeping across the United States. Here in Western Pennsylvania, you started to see some job losses. And did you start immediately to see an increase in need for food, or did it happen gradually?
In March itself, it was a little more gradual than what it was come the later months. We were trying more to prepare for what it would look like if we started to lose staff, more so than what it would look like if people weren't able to get from point A to point B, or it was so bad that you couldn't hand them a box of food. Like, what did that look like? So we had to change gears relatively quick when we figured out, this is really bad. So we need to be able to figure out how to pre-pack those boxes and to get them out, because nobody wanted to open their doors, which you understood why. I mean, the churches were closed, church halls were not available, buildings were not available where our food pantries are. So we had to get into reaction mode really quick.
Right. So those are all COVID-19 policies, meaning instead of having people actually physically enter the building to get their food, you now had to devise a whole process, another multi-step process to pre-pack that food.
Yes, and everybody went to drive-through, either drive-through or walk-up. So come April, we really saw an influx of people. Normally, we do about 7,000 to 7,500 a month. We went from around 9,000 to 9,500 at our high water mark. It was quite amazing. Some of the stories that we were hearing, not just your regular job loss issues or somebody in the family was sick and they couldn't work, therefore they didn't get paid, but people with special diets, people that were celiac or gluten-free that could not get the food in the grocery stores. Those were people who'd never ever had to ask for a hand up. And it was very difficult for them to come in with their heart in their hand and say, I just can't find the food for my children. It wasn't just themselves who might have been celiac or gluten-free, it was their children. And that was very hard, very hard for us to be able to find that food for them, and get them the things that they needed. Thank God we were able to provide gift cards and things like that so that they could go to a place like Nature's Way or other specialty stores that specialize in that type of food. But that is very expensive. So it's just been quite heart-wrenching.
How about your staff? I'm sure you have a lot of wonderful things to say about your staff, how they've responded. I mean, they're pretty much have taken over, right? Because you've had to limit the volunteerism, I would imagine.
We did. Our volunteers are pretty much in full force now, but throughout, we did have an outbreak here at the food bank where we had 7 people out 7 staff members. So we, needless to say, had to restrict all volunteers to nothing. And that was very difficult. Not only were you worried about their well-being, but you were worried about how we were going to get the job done if we continued to lose people. So we had to get into reaction mode again. Like, what does that look like? We had offers from sister food banks, from the Greater Pittsburgh Food Bank, from the Erie Food Bank, that were willing to send a driver in a truck, and then all we would have to do is load them. They wouldn't have to come into the building or anything like that. But thank God we didn't have to do that. We were down at 7, and that was as high as we got. And thank God everybody was a mild case and nothing very serious, but scary nonetheless. So we went from March and April and May being very, very hectic. Then we had a little bit of a lull, got a little complacent, and then come October, it was like, bam, it just hit us like a ton of bricks. So it was very difficult to work under those circumstances. But as you said, I could say so many amazing things about our team. We do truly have an amazing, dedicated team here. And I am very blessed to have these people working with me in the fight against hunger. I mean, they're very, very compassionate.
So October hits, and the virus is in full swing. The demand for food, I'm sure now, again, hits that watermark that you're talking about, right? The high watermark. So did you ever find yourself under-resourced, and who do you reach out to whenever you're getting hit like that?
When we never, the way that we purchase food is a lot different than some of our other sister food banks, because we purchase so far in advance. So we were very lucky that we didn't see the shortages that some of the other food banks were seeing. What was scary for us, we were able to obtain grant funding from various resources to actually purchase turkeys this year. And this is the first time in several years, probably in about 5 years, that we were able to do that. And that's something that myself, it feels very strongly about, making sure that we provide that item. We used to say it's only one meal, but it's not. You have a family, you're going to get a couple meals out of that turkey. And, so we feel it's very important for that normalcy to be in people's lives, especially this year. And one of the things that was very scary was the shipment of turkeys was very much delayed, even though we did order them in April. So, they weren't your name brands or anything like that. So they got stuck here and there in different ports to get into Pennsylvania. So it was a little scary that we weren't going to be able to provide that for our families. But it happened, it came through. More funding came in, and not only were we able to provide turkeys for Thanksgiving, we were able to provide hams for Christmas. So we were very, very, very blessed. And I think one of the things that was the most scary for us in terms of funding and resources was basically having the manpower, meaning the volunteer power, to be able to serve over 7,000 families throughout all of this. And, not only here at our warehouse, but throughout our food pantries. And how do we roll back to the way that we used to do things? Because we're going to burn our volunteers out. And, because it's very difficult work. If anybody's ever packed a food box in our warehouse, knows how difficult that is. I've done it, and it's hard work. And, but that's why I'm very appreciative of what our warehousemen do and what our volunteers do, because that is very strenuous.
This has to be strenuous, especially to get volunteers during COVID. People might be afraid to step up, but you do have procedures and I would imagine precautions in place to protect the volunteers that do come in.
We do. We do the screening just like everybody else does. They get their temperature taken on the way in and on the way out. The screening questions that the state requires or suggests. We also were able to purchase through grant funding through all of this, an extra set of rollers. So we have 2 sets of rollers to where we were able to extend the line throughout the warehouse. Kind of looks like a snake. So they were able to set it up to where people were truly more than 6 feet apart from one another. And it was really very helpful. Like, some of our volunteers were a little skittish, which you can understand, I would be too, about coming in and being standing right next to somebody putting food in and them sweating or sneezing or coughing or whatever. I said, if people don't say God bless you anymore, they look at you like, oh my gosh. But it's been a blessing to be able to have the funding come through to get us what we need, all the PPE that we need. We've been blessed with that. We're here to help. We've been here for 38 years. We're not planning on going anywhere. We would love to be out of business because there's no need, but we know that that's not really a reality. We're here to solve food insecurity, and we're on our way to doing that. And I'm very proud of our volunteers and our staff, and the community outpouring through all of this, getting us the funds that we need in order to get the job done has been truly amazing.
I believe it. Jen, if you did want to volunteer in the new year, what would be the steps that you would take to volunteer for the Westmoreland County Food Bank?
They would simply go to our website or give us a call. We would let them know that on our website has dates that are available for people to come in. We do one Saturday a month where we pack senior food boxes, and then we have shifts throughout the week. And after we're done packing, pre-packing boxes, there still will be opportunities to repack donated food, repack freezer and cooler items, and so on, and sort through produce that is donated to make sure it's all good quality or able to go out to our consumers. So there's shifts that they can choose from. The paperwork that we need to have filled out is all online, or it could be sent out in the mail if you don't have access to a computer. So it's very easy to volunteer. Our shifts vary depending on what our need is. So it's always best to check in to make sure that we're in need. But we always have a Wednesday shift from 9 to 11. We have our regular Wednesday volunteers, and they're a great group of people. And if anybody wants to come and help them, they would always welcome extra hands.
That's wonderful. And I would imagine you have a range of age of volunteers, young, old, in the middle.
We do, especially now with online schooling and things like that. There's a little bit of flexibility. So anybody who's over the age of 14 can come to the warehouse. If they're between 14 and 18, we would prefer that they have an adult with them for obvious reasons, but we can't have them in the warehouse if they're not 14. So, and then I think our oldest volunteer, to my knowledge, was 91 when he wow. decided, okay, that's enough. And he God bless him, I think he was in better shape than most.
That is wonderful. Well, if you're just joining us, welcome to Westmoreland Community Connections. I'm your host, Jennifer Mealy, and I'm joined today by Jennifer Miller. She's the Chief Executive Officer of the Westmoreland County Food Bank. She's been in that role for more than 2 years now, and was talking about the high watermark of feeding more than 9,000 people in a month during COVID-19. Jen, I can't imagine the stress. And before we take a break, thank you for all that you do. And why don't you tell our listeners today how they can donate? How can they help?
There's so many ways that people can help. They can donate food. They could either do it right here at our warehouse in Delmont. We have several drop-off locations around Westmoreland County, and they can access that on our website. And at any of our food pantries. We have food pantries in almost every community in Westmoreland County. We have 44 of them. So there's always a place for you to donate food. They can donate their time. We always need volunteers in our food pantries. As you could probably imagine, our food pantries are mostly older individuals that are helping because they're retired. And some of them are getting to the point where it's very hard work. As I said earlier, it is very hard work. So they're getting to the point where they maybe aren't going to be able to do it much longer. So we need younger volunteers or older volunteers who still have the backs to be able to do that. And then we need volunteers here in our warehouse as well. and monetary donations, of course. They can donate online. They could donate with a check. They could donate through their place of business if they have matching funds. They could remember us in their estate planning. There's so many ways that people can help and leave a lasting impression on thousands and thousands of people.
You're listening to Westmoreland Community Connections on WHJB.
This is Westmoreland Community Connections on Classic Hits 107.1 WHJB. If you have a suggestion for a topic, or if your nonprofit organization would like to be featured on this program, call us during regular business hours at 724-216-1200.
Westmoreland Community Connections is a presentation of Citizens Fiber.
Welcome back to Westmoreland Community Connections on WHJB. I'm your host, Jennifer Mealy. I'm joined today by Jennifer Miller. She's the Chief Executive Officer of the Westmoreland County Food Bank. Jennifer, everyone had a bad 2020, but in terms of what you brought to the community, 2020 had to be a record year for the number of mouths that you fed, the number of meals that you provided, and the number of challenges that you faced. So let's go back a little bit and talk about your career. What did you start out at as in the food bank? Tell us what your first role was there.
Well, my first role in food banking was about 24 years ago at the Fayette County Food Bank. I was the manager there for the facility there. And from there, I wanted to become a part of a Feeding America affiliated food bank. And I saw an opportunity in Westmoreland County and became the director of development back in 2005. So from 2005 until January of 2019, I was the director of development. So I did a lot of grant writing, a lot of fundraising, a lot of public relations and things like that. And then in 2019, I took over as CEO. And I never thought it would happen. I never thought it was something that was in the cards for me. But I am blessed that the board had the faith in me to hire me as the next CEO, and only the fourth CEO in the organization's history. So I'm very proud to be in this position, and to say that I have an amazing team behind me is an understatement. I've never worked with such a talented and compassionate team as we have here at the food bank.
That's wonderful to hear. In your role as the Chief Executive Officer, I'm sure you have networking opportunities where you're talking to CEOs of other food banks. What is the prognosis of other food banks across the country? Are they struggling, or are people stepping up? What does it look like?
Right now, the what we're looking at mostly, and from what I'm hearing from my colleagues across the country, is our biggest obstacle is the unknown. 2020 was such a mess. It's so hard to describe because it was like either feast or famine. Like one day it was like, wow, we have this to do this, but we would get these pockets of money that had to be spent in like 3 weeks. And it was like, okay, that's fine. We, as we can do that, but it made it very difficult to do that. And then you would go lulls where you're going, okay, we're going to need to dive into reserves in order to get this done. So the unknown, not knowing what 2021 is going to bring, not knowing, is the virus going to end? Is the virus going to at least let up? What is the lasting effects from this? They said at the beginning it could be 24 to 48 months before we really see whatever normal is back. Are jobs going to continue to be lost because people can't recover from the recession of business, for lack of a better word? So the unknown is truly a huge obstacle across the country for food banks, and I'm sure other nonprofits all over the country. So not knowing, if your funding sources are going to be there, if people are going to be able to continue to donate financially, how does it all look? Budgeting every year is difficult because you never know what the year is going to bring. It's really difficult now.
I couldn't imagine. When you see people, especially new people, coming to the food bank for help, is it because of job loss? Is it because of the fear of going to the grocery store? Is it a mix of all of those things, the elderly?
It's a myriad of reasons. Mostly the elderly. We do have a commodity supplemental food program, which is for seniors who are 60 years of age and older. And that our numbers have skyrocketed for that program. And a lot of times they can get both. They can get both the regular food box and the senior food box. Most of them choose not to because the senior box or the regular food box is enough for them. But we were seeing new people who were never even enrolled in our regular food box program get onto the senior food box program because they were scared. They were always income eligible, but they were scared now to go to the grocery store. And this was a great way for them to be able to combat that problem. I think that we're seeing a mix of people who have lost jobs and people who have been affected by the virus physically that are now coming to us for help. Not everybody was able to be paid while they were off from their jobs when they were sick. So that really put needless to say, a crimp in their budget. And that is what we're here for, to help anybody who needs it.
I'm sure they're very glad that you are there to help. What kind of fundraising campaigns have you been working on in the last year or so to supplement your budget?
Well, mostly we don't do a lot of fundraising events, so we weren't affected by any of those being, having to be canceled or anything like that. Our main source of income, needless to say, is grants, writing for grants to foundations and corporations. But direct mail continues to be alive and well in Westmoreland County. We're very, very blessed with that. We're starting to move into our online fundraising now. People are getting more acclimated into that here in Westmoreland County. But direct mail, it really is our lifeline.
So what do you need them to do when they do get that mailer? What needs to happen?
We need them to send it in. They could either do it online. There's a link, to be able to go and make their donation online, or send their check in. Check comes directly here to the food bank. It gets scanned. It gets cashed as soon as possible. So we do our very best to put those dollars to work. For every dollar that's donated, 96% goes back out to our consumers. So that is a huge turnaround on a donor dollar. We're very good stewards to the donor dollar because there is such a need here in Westmoreland County, and we need to cover that.
You're talking about your main warehouse, and that's in Delmont, and you have very good infrastructure there. You were saying everything from refrigeration to storage, and now you even have an enhanced packing line so that you can spread people 6 feet apart. So that Delmont facility is really your main hub. That's right.
Correct. Yes, we have a 40,000 square foot warehouse. It used to be an old Kennemental building. So we have adjusted it to make it a warehouse, food warehouse. We do have 2 freezers and coolers and 1 cooler. Sometimes I worry that we're going to outgrow the building as the need rises. But so far so good, knock on wood. We're still good where we're at.
And then you partner with a lot of food pantries, churches, a lot of places like that around Westmoreland County. So if you're listening to this and you're from New Kensington, or you're listening to this and you're from Irwin, there are certainly other drop-off locations, other places that you can donate, correct?
Yes, we have such great partnerships with the local churches and local organizations, Salvation Armies. Like you said, from New Kensington to Scottdale, and from Monessen back to Ligonier. So there's food pantries in every community. And if you are part of the working poor, people who are working but aren't able to make ends meet, we do have pantries that distribute on Saturdays. And we would be able to make those arrangements for you if you're not able to get there during the week when they distribute in the morning or early afternoons. So
the bulk of the food comes to you, and then you distribute it to the food pantries, and then they help distribute it to the local community.
Yes. So I always say we're like the bank, and our food pantries are like the ATMs where people go and make a withdrawal. So we are able to provide about 90 to 99% of the food that goes into the food pantries. And then from there, then they donate or they distribute that out. So we get food from the state through the State Food Purchase Program, the Emergency Food Assistance Program through the USDA. Like I said, the Commodity Supplemental Food Program. We also get grants to purchase food. And then we also get a lot of donated food through the Boy Scout Scouting for Food in the spring, the mail carriers, which both were affected in 2020 by the virus. So those numbers were really down. And we also pick up food at local grocery stores like Walmart's, Giant Eagles, Aldi's, Target, to where it's like close to date product that they would normally throw into their landfills, or produce that is starting to get to the point where people wouldn't buy it on the shelves, but it's still consumable. We're able to take that, and then through our Operation Fresh Express that runs from March to December, we're able to do special distributions. Not sure how that's going to look in 2021, but we're working on making it still low touch until the virus is gone. So stay tuned for that.
Interesting. And here you are in these very, very difficult times, and probably seeing story after story that's so heartbreaking. Mental health is also a piece of this, and you are a food bank, but I'm sure you also care for the hearts and minds of many people when they come in. And is that part of the volunteer process, and part of being a good food bank employee is caring for more than just the food?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that, we used to say all the time, that we're not here to solve poverty. We're here to solve hunger issues. We're here to solve food insecurity. But as we see our role evolving, where we're going to, our internal and external connections and partnerships are the lifeline of our successes. So we need to make sure that we're not only saying, well, here, you can go here for food. We need to be able to say, well, you need to call 211 through United Way to find out what else you can get help with, whether you need rental assistance or mortgage assistance, or, help with your utilities, or whatever the case might be. Because people's situations are so different now. The face of hunger would truly surprise you. I always thought we would not be able to use that line very much in the future, back in the day, but we're still using it, because those faces of hunger and those faces of poverty look just like you, look just like me. You can't judge a book by their cover. Somebody may come up to a food line or to get services with a very nice car. Well, that doesn't mean that they're trying to rook the system. There's something happening there. I'm sorry, I don't feel that anybody would stand in a food line out for everybody to see them if they didn't truly need it. And that's what we're here for. We're not here to judge. We're not here to, say, well, why are they in line? Well, we're all one job loss, one virus illness away from being in those lines. And more now than ever, we can say there's been a lot of people that have asked for a hand up, that have never, ever asked for a hand up before, and have been truly grateful for the help that they've received. And we're so happy that we've been able to be here to help them through.
Jen, tell us one more time for the people at home how they can donate to the Westmoreland County Food Bank.
They can donate by visiting our website at westmorelandfoodbank.org, or they can send a check in to 100 Devonshire Drive in Delmont, PA, 15626. If they have questions about how to donate, or they're not really comfortable giving their credit card online and would rather do it from person to person, they can still do with a credit card by just calling us, and we can do that for them. There's so many avenues in which they can help donate food, either to the food bank here in Delmont, or to one of the food pantries across Westmoreland County, or one of our drop-off locations, which is also on our website. And of course, volunteering. We always need volunteers.
Wonderful. Jennifer Miller, the Chief Executive Officer of the Westmoreland County Food Bank, thank you so much for joining us here on Westmoreland Community Connections. I'm your host, Jennifer Mealy, and we hope to welcome you back with good news later in 2021. Thank you, Jen. Take care.
Thank you.
This has been Westmoreland Community Connections, a look at issues and happenings in and around Westmoreland County. Join us again next week on Classic Hits 107.1 WHJB.
Westmoreland Community Connections is a presentation of Citizens Fiber.